So that's my gavel. Let's go ahead and I'm going to call this meeting to order, and if we could have a roll call, please.
Yes, sir. From Stafford County, Henry Sharpenberg.
Here. Morgan
Birch.
He's online.
Okay, great. And I'm going to, this is Becky Golden for folks on the phone there, and I'm going to slow things down a little bit here this evening. We've got a captioner that's typing while we're talking, and then we have folks that are reading the typing as they're talking. And I've got to get to know y'all too, so I'm gonna, and I've got a list here. So anyway, I may kind of slow things down a little bit from what you might be used to. Ms. Durant, Tara Durant.
She's in Richmond.
Okay. Doing the hard job, doing the hard work.
Oh, yes.
Glenn Goldsmith.
Glenn is here. Good evening.
Great, great. James Powell. Great. And Mr. Powell is one of our new members. Thank you for agreeing to serve, as well as Mr. Birch, who's on remotely. Thank you. David Swan. Jacob Clay.
Here.
Great, and Mr. Clay is also a new member from Spotsylvania County. Welcome. From Spotsylvania County, in addition to Mr. Clay, Micah Cunningham, Neil Holleran, and Mr. Holleran advised me on an email he'll be attending remotely. Maybe he'll tune in a little later on. He's traveling.
Okay.
From
Hi,
King.
this is Neil.
Here you are. Hi, Neil.
Becky. Hi, everybody,
Great,
and welcome to all the new Spotsylvania County members. Thanks.
Great. Thank you for joining, and hope your travels are safe. Ms. Jerron Hayes from King George advised she's not able to attend tonight. From Fredericksburg, Matthew Rowe.
Present.
Great. Josh Brock. John Castellarin.
Right.
Great. Patricia Encarnacion. David McLaughlin, also Fredericksburg.
Here.
Great. And from Caroline, Justin Chenault, Michael Hoyt, Ken Pogue, and from the at-large members, Ms. Banks advised me that she will be attending remotely. Or do we have you here, Ms. Banks?
Yes, I am here, but I may have to leave,
Right.
but I am here.
Great, thank you. Rupert Farley.
Here.
And Mr. Gross, Larry Gross advised us early this evening that he's not able to attend. It's his busy time with tax season. Ms. Leeds, Jane Leeds, are you there?
Yes.
Great, so good to hear your voice. Dustin Savage?
Here.
Great. Rodney Thomas, I believe he's attending remotely. Are you with us, Mr. Thomas? Staff this evening, we have Ian Ollis, Matthew Lehane, myself, Becky Golden. Introducing Lana Bizot. If you could raise your hand, Lana. She's our staff intern and responsible for the congestion management process document that you'll see tonight. Our captioner, who's listening to us and typing like the wind, her name is Abby Forshear. You do have a quorum, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. To amplify what
Dave Swan is here.
Great.
To amplify what Becky said, we're going to slow things down and before you talk, I'm going to say the chair recognizes so-and-so. And if I don't recognize you, please play along and just state your name, because I haven't learned all the faces yet, and the masks make it exciting. So we want to make sure that our typists can capture the salient points and do so for the record and for some of our members who are dialing in remotely. So we'll slow that down and try to make it just a little bit more formal. So welcome, everybody. Our first action agenda is item number 3, approval of the CTAC agenda for this evening. I hope everybody has had an opportunity to take a look at the agenda. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda? Chair recognizes Rupert Farley, who makes the motion. Is there a second? Second. Matt Rowe is making the second. Any discussion? Hearing none, call for a vote. All those in favor of adopting the agenda signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the agenda passes. Okay, we'll go into old business. And the first item,
Meeting,
I'm sorry?
the meeting minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Next action item is the approval of the meeting minutes from the January 12th meeting.
Move approval of the minutes.
Chair recognizes Rupert Farley, who made the motion to approve the minutes.
There's an error.
Okay, please. What's the error?
I think it's in the mission statement, the record there. Josh Brock, I don't think was in that. It was Dave McLaughlin, myself,
Good, I was confused
And-
about who the 3 were.
and
Great.
Dave and Josh.
Sorry,
Okay,
okay.
good, thank you.
that's the only,
Thank you for correcting that. So the correction to the minutes are the deletion of
Josh Brock,
Josh Brock, and the addition of,
David Swan.
okay, can we have a motion to accept the minutes as amended?
So moved.
Okay,
second for Dave Swan.
Dave Swan makes the second. Any discussion on the amended minutes or the motion? All those in favor of adopting the amended minutes with that one change signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, the motion passes. Okay, now let's go to old business. On the CTAC mission statement, I asked 3 people to take a look at that, who labored very under difficult conditions given the constraints of being able to meet in person. They were sending things back and forth. To their credit, when they emailed me individually, they didn't cuss me out or say nasty things, but they worked very hard to get a mission statement. And who would like to make the report for the group of 3?
I actually brought something. John Castellarin. Hand it out.
What we'll do is, Mr. Lehane will bring it up for our remote attendees, and I'm handing out a hard copy to everyone that's here.
So basically, our first part of our struggle was knowing what we were trying to do. We had some miscommunication about whether we were supposed to be trying to create a new mission statement for CTAC at large, but as Dave McLaughlin pointed out, that would require a change in the bylaws. So that would have been more of a hassle. So after some discussion, the 3 of us, we all contacted Hank. And what we ended up with are the 2 options. The only difference is the first few words, where the first one's focus is on the outcomes, and the second one just includes achieved through members, individual and collaborative efforts, greater focus on the actions of the members. It's primarily for an addition to the current purpose as stated in the bylaws, rather than a replacement for what's in the bylaws.
Which is consistent with what I asked them to do. We were not going to replace the purpose, but we wanted to, in my opinion, we wanted to emphasize how we're going to get there. So, any other comments?
I think excellent job on that, and I move that we approve option 2.
Okay, the motion has been made by Dave McLaughlin to approve option 2, and is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Matt Rowe. Discussion on that motion.
I'm a little unclear as to what we're replacing. Do we have the original?
I know I asked them to take the original mission statement that we provided at the meeting and wicker it. Now, the comment being was made by Rupert Farley. He asked, what are we replacing? We're not replacing anything. The mission statement that I provided to the group in that slide presentation was a proposed mission statement. We started discussing that at the last meeting. I felt that we didn't want to burden the entire meeting on, for lack of a better term, wordsmithing. So I asked the 3 gentlemen who volunteered, however reluctantly, to take on this mission, and I think they did a great job under the limitations that are imposed upon us on open meetings. So this is their proposed mission statement that captures and emphasizes the things you just heard briefed. Hope that
I'd like to amend that motion to table this until the next meeting, and they can come back with these 2 choices along with the existing mission statement that they would be replacing.
There is no existing, all right, that comment was made by Rupert Farley. There is no existing mission statement. There's none in the bylaws. The only mission statement was a proposal that I disseminated on the slide presentation the very first meeting. So he's made a proposal.
I'll withdraw that. I assumed that there was a mission statement in place already.
I understand that. Okay, so Mr. Farley is going to withdraw the motion. So the motion's on the floor and has been seconded. Any other further discussion on adopting option 2 as the mission statement for CTAC?
Did you say option 2, Dave?
Yes. The original motion was for option 2. That is correct. Dave McLaughlin.
Okay.
Okay, so the motion on adopting option 2 has been made by Dave McLaughlin, seconded by Matt Rowe. Comment?
Yes.
Please, the chair recognizes.
Power.
Thank you.
In the 2 options here, is the difference in you engaging the public as to access transportation needs and not engaging the public? What's the difference between the 2 options?
The thing, okay, and in response to, one more time, I'm sorry. Jay, in response to Mr. Powell, before you came on board, I assumed the role of chair, and I briefed the membership on how I wanted us to become an advocacy organization and to align our efforts along 3 general areas, and they're laid out in option 2. And I see us transitioning into a group that becomes advocates for solutions, both gleaning input from the public and then advocating potential solutions to the public along those 3 areas. So it's not so much that option 1 doesn't have advocacy, but option 2, at least in my opinion, more clearly captures the direction I think that the CTAC needs to evolve into. I hope that answers your question.
It does, but it's kind of opposite. Option 1 does have advocacy, and option 2 doesn't appear to have. And that's why I asked you over this.
But
not leaving
The other way around.
the primary,
Chair recognizes.
John Castellarin. The primary difference is in the phrase through members' individual and collaborative efforts. It's more about what our actions are expected to, I mean, as general a term as possible to say the focus is on our actions, whereas the first one, the same words are being used, the same concepts are being used, but the focus is on what our objectives are. So I mean, that's the only real difference. And then because I added the extra subject, I had to change the verb tense. That's it. So.
Both of the proposals specifically use the word advocate or advocating, so they both capture the concept of advocating. Both of them, whichever one you pick.
Now, if we find out down the road that this doesn't adequately suit our purposes, as the chair, we can revisit the issue, but I I personally believe, an opinion that option 2 is a good starting point. It's a good collaborative effort, and it sort of captures the direction in which we want to go. And of course, anything can be amended, fixed, modified down the road as we go through the experience and learn from how we're transitioning into this new path. Are there any other questions or comments concerning the motion on the floor? Anything remotely? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of adopting option 2 as the mission statement to be placed in our bylaws signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
What do you say, Jane?
Any against?
Did she vote?
No, I don't think so.
I'm here.
Okay. We're just waiting for you to vote. Did you vote?
Yes.
Okay. Any opposed? Motion carries. And again, I want to thank our committee of 3 remote players for their hard work in getting this done.
Just in terms of technicalities, Mr. Chair, unless I'm wrong, my understanding is that you would need to send the amendment to the policy committee to incorporate into the official bylaws of the CTAC. So this wording you just approved, Becky will just send it to the policy committee and say, CTAC wishes to amend their bylaws, please can you add this paragraph to the bylaws as the mission statement or whatever you call it.
Okay, that comment was made by Ian. Yes, sir. Chair recognizes Dave McGoffin.
As we said when we started, we are not changing our bylaws, we're not changing the purpose statement within the bylaws. This is additional guidance for use of the body to get at how we are going to do our mission. Not what our mission is, but how we're going to do it is by achieving engagement through and those sorts of things. So we're not making any formal change to the bylaws or the purpose statement in the bylaws.
If you don't want to forward that bylaws, that's fine. I'm just saying if it should be added into the official bylaws, you just need to submit it to the policy committee. I want to do that, and you just want to have it as your agreement as a committee, that's fine.
I would like to get it into the bylaws, and I'm more than happy to show it to them. I don't think there'll be any objection or, yes, sir. Chair recognizes Dave.
Before we go to policy committee, the committee itself would have to approve and amend our own bylaws. We write our own bylaws, then they go to the policy committee. So you can't, they just don't go to policy, we would have to approve those changes.
Right.
And that's, if we want to get on with the mission, then we can get on with the mission. Or if we want to change bylaws, we can change bylaws. Doing both is tiresome.
Okay, Chair recognizes Dave Swan.
Dave Swan passed, and Dave will remember this, we amended our bylaws ourselves. And we notified the policy committee, I'm assuming, I don't remember that specific act, but it wasn't a problem. We voted on it, approved it, and that's what we went with. They were our bylaws, our committee's bylaws, and that's a matter of public record. So as long as the public's informed, I think we're good.
I think so.
We're subordinate to the policy committee. There's nothing I've seen in their bylaws that steer them to put oversight on us. So.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Who's on the?
Neil, I think.
Please identify name, please.
Morgan Birch, Stafford.
Okay.
So what was stated previously is correct. So whenever it came to the way that the CTAC governed itself, as far as the way that meetings were managed, we did amend our own bylaws. But if it was to change the material function of the committee, we weren't able to do that. It takes the policy committee to do that because of the charter that is that authorizes the formation of this committee itself. So we can't do that. We can't change the charter, but we can definitely change how the committee functions in the bylaws, or how it's managed rather. Sorry.
Okay, I thank you both for the clarification. So then, can I have a motion? I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
My question was pretty much what he just stated. But I guess to add to the question, if we're changing our own bylaws and we're voting on these bylaws, what number do we have to have present or not present to create a quorum?
We have a quorum.
There was a quorum announced earlier.
What's the official rule for a quorum?
Mr. Chairman, may I be recognized?
I'm sorry?
I'm requesting to be recognized again.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
So what determines a quorum is actually outlined in the bylaws, and I believe it's a simple majority of the appointed members of the CTAC itself.
We have that this evening. Yes, we have that this evening.
Okay, so can I have a motion that we amend the bylaws by incorporating option 2 as a mission statement, an addition to the bylaws?
Is that a friendly amendment to the maker of the motion?
Well, I mean, your original motion was what?
To adopt the proposed CTAC mission statement option 2.
Okay, so based on that, I don't see even a need to do anything to the bylaws because CTAC mission statement. So, look, we'll add it to the bylaws.
Well, no, I just voted on it, and as my understanding, this is Dave McLaughlin, my understanding when we were tasked to do this and discussions we had individually, never more than 2 of us, where we were not, our intent was not to try and rewrite the whole purpose statement or what CTAC is about that is in the bylaws. It was only to come up with this working group, these subgroups, which could be of a temporary nature, and they could change over time. They're not CTAC long-lasting. And it was just to give them direction and purpose for what they're doing under their efforts. To me, I didn't see anything to do with bylaws. To me, it doesn't, we don't need to change any bylaws. We just, we develop these, we say, these are what we agree to follow, and that's what these working 3 subgroups are going to use for their guidance. Simple as that. I mean, we don't do bureaucratic changing of bylaws, and then we have to come with a draft new bylaw change, and then we'd have to vote on it. We can do that, but it just seems unnecessary. Anyway.
We have, I personally don't care because I want us to get on with the business at hand. And if a parliamentarian wants to come looking for me down the road, I reside at 2342 Courthouse Road in Stafford. So the motion has been made and passed. I suggest we go on to the next item on the agenda.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, in terms of the groups that were discussed at the last couple of meetings and also described in this option 2, we've had some people indicate they would like to participate in those groups. Some folks have contacted me directly. Neil Holleran has indicated he wants to participate in the Congestion Mitigation group. Is that correct, Neil?
Yeah, that's correct.
And Jane Leeds has indicated that she wants to participate in the mass transit group. Now, if anybody else has indicated that they would like to participate to Becky or Ian, I'm not aware of it yet. I suspect we're going to get more engagement as people become more educated and more comfortable with this particular effort. And I just want to restate what the effort is. Given the sheer amount of volume of information that pertains to the transportation mission in our region, and the fact that we can only meet once a month as the Citizens Transportation Advisory Committee, it seems that we can either be the recipients of large amounts of information and not be able to do things because we're overwhelmed, or to compartmentalize a little bit our interests so that we can focus in and advocate for those things that are clearly necessary. I think everybody will agree that the 3 missions espoused in option 2 are huge. The congestion mitigation study that we were provided as part of our minutes is very well done, and in of itself is a lot of information that needs to be absorbed, considered, and made part of the plan. So I'm not so concerned that only a few people have jumped forward and decided to volunteer. My intent is not to create full-time jobs for anybody because you're all busy people. But if we focus a little bit, I think we can get more done. And the fact that we had 3 members that were able to, under trying circumstances, come up with a couple of good options for our mission statement is an indication that as we refine procedures and get organized, we can get some more things done. So that's where we stand so far on these subgroups. Now, in the interim, as we flush these out, I intend to take actions to make sure people know what CTAC is and what our mission is, both by appearances in front of public bodies and elected officials and by publications in various newspapers and so on. And I'm preparing an article for the Freelance Star on some of these things. And I encourage you all to do that too. So we're not kicking off all 3 of these committees until we have a little bit more fleshed out and engagement, but I think they're going to be the way to go. And if it turns out months down the road we don't make any progress, then we'll consider Plan B. Okay, Chair recognizes Rupert Farley.
Do you intend to go forward with these subcommittees with only one person and you on them?
So far, I mean, it's a way of getting additional effort in these areas, yes. You know, whether we have 1, 2, or 10, it's people who have an interest in that particular area, would like to contribute as much or as little as their other real life permits, and yes, we're going to go forward.
Do you anticipate these being daytime meetings or evening meetings?
I'm sorry.
Do you anticipate these meetings being daytime or evening?
I see these meetings as being collaborative efforts similar to what these 3 gentlemen did, as time permits, sharing ideas, communicating with one another and with other members of the committee, and then, if necessary, taking up time as part of our regular monthly meetings and making that a specific agenda item. Or in the rare instance when we need to impose upon the FAMPO staff for support, call a public meeting. But I see that as an option of absolutely last resort, because my intent is not to burden the staff. I'm sorry.
Just to add to this, please, I urge you again to not call them committees.
Focus groups, how's that?
And you're never going to have more than 2 people meeting. If you do, then you've got to inform us and the whole rigmarole starts. That's fine. We can do an occasional subcommittee with the rigmarole, but we can't do one every other week. That's when it becomes big. But please, not committees. Call them focus groups, and if only 2 people meet, that's fine. It's not even a meeting. It's a conversation between 2 interested people who have an area of interest. That's fine.
Yeah, and he brings up, Ian brings up a very good point. There's a lot to do, and we can't assign ourselves suspenses like, in next week, be prepared to talk about everything in your area on the next 5-year plan, because you don't have the time to do that, and the coordination and the exchange of information required precludes that. So this is going to be an evolving effort, but it allows us, I firmly believe, to get a little bit more organized and to focus our efforts, because right now, this is a large body, and there's a fire hose of information, and I'm sure some of you leave at the end of the evening and your head hurts from the sheer amount of information that's been provided to you. It allows people like Jane Leeds, who has a vested interest in mass transit, to direct her energies along that lines. And those people who see, risk, congestion mitigation or safety on our roads as their particular interest, to come together, collaborate on those things that are of interest to them, either subject-wise or geographically, and move us further to the goalpost. Because as you've all seen, people don't really know what CTAC does. A lot of them don't know what FAMPO does, but they'll be the first people to wag their finger and yell at them people for a screwed up transportation system. This is a way for us to at least move the goalpost forward. So this may endure, this may die, this will obviously evolve. But yes, I intend to go forward with those volunteers we have already. And, sir. The chair recognizes.
John Castellarin. I just have a question, since it was brought up with the being able to meet with more than 2 people. if I know that in the past, the committee members have held public outings, like at the library. If something happens, like, let's say, at the Fredericksburg branch, and we decide we're gonna focus it on congestion mitigation, would that be a way for having multiple, like 3, 4 people from that group, smaller focus group, being able to meet in a public setting, having already decided, we've already announced this is going to be something CTAC, or that we're out there connecting to the public, but have it focused in on congestion mitigation so that someone from Stafford, someone from Spotsy will come there, instead of having it like at the Fredericksburg branch, but only for concerns of people in Fredericksburg.
Here's the difficulty, and we're splitting hairs with the lawyers, but the lawyers will tell you that if, in the case of a board of supervisors, if more than 3 members or more than 2 members of the board are in a group, they can't discuss board stuff. If more than 3 CTAC members are at a public venue, they can't go off to the side and hold sub-discussions. They could make comments in a public venue, but they can't collaborate and appear on a dais as all 3 people and say, we're the face of CTAC. We're splitting hairs here, but there are some ways, because your own supervisors, they go to Christmas parties, or they go to boards and commissions ceremonies, and they're all there. As long as they don't discuss board-related stuff, they're okay. And we can do the same thing. We're going to be splitting hairs, and I don't want anybody to go to jail, especially these folks. So we're going to have to be careful about it. But again, this is a radical departure from the way an organization like CTAC has done business in the past, because we've got to organize ourselves if we're going to move any of these issues forward.
So the simple rule of thumb is, if you look around this room, if you go to any venue with more than one other person from this room, and you then discuss CTAC business, you're in violation of FOIA, unless you've advertised the meeting and invited the public to attend. If you have advertised the meeting and invited the public to attend, then we have to have minutes. We have to report back to CTAC. We have to have a staff member sent to accompany. However, any other person in the room can meet with you and discuss things. The minute there's a third person from this group, it's then an official meeting, which we have to give notice, invite the public, publish an agenda, have a disability accessible venue, have a staff member take minutes, et cetera, all those other things kick in. So any 2 of you can chat, but the minute there's a third person, it's regarded as a subcommittee of the organization, and then all that other stuff is in. So that's the key thing. Any venue you go to, if it's just you and one other person, it's fine. If it's you and more than one other person in this room, it's automatically regarded as a committee by the law. We don't even have to say it as a committee, it's automatically, whether we like it or not.
So the easiest solution will be, if something like that comes up, ask. And as I said, this is going to be evolving. The open meeting requirements impose some severe restrictions. Our alternative is either throw up our hands and do nothing, which I don't like, or find a way to constructively engage and still satisfy the requirements of the law. So we're going to try that. Does anybody else have any questions about the 3 focus groups? And is anybody would like to join any of them that has not already said so? Chair recognizes the Vice Chair, Matt Rowe.
I'm interested in working with this team.
Okay, Matt Rowe is going to be part of the safety group.
Great.
Great.
This is Glenn of Stafford. I'd like to be recognized.
Okay, Chair recognizes Glenn. Go ahead.
Thank you. One question on the duration of time of these focus groups. Is it indefinite at this point, or do you see or project an end date or an end time, like 6 months, a year? What is your expectation on the focus group duration?
I think they're indefinite, because these are large transportation requirements for the region. I don't ever see them being totally satisfied, but we will adapt accordingly. And so if the wording of the focus groups needs to change, or their emphasis or priority needs to evolve, we'll do that. but I see, at least while I'm the chair, and if you don't like me, you can get rid of me next June. While I'm the chair, I would like to pursue this so that we can, as I mentioned, get some things done. Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for the question.
This is Jane Leeds. I have a question.
Just a minute.
Yes, I'm interested in doing congestion mitigation.
Okay, and
Jacob Clay.
okay. Jacob Clay?
Yes.
From Stafford is joining the congestion mitigation. By the way, leadership positions are wide open. So if you have a desire to help frame this out and you would like to do that, I'm not going to ask you to commit in public. You can email me or call me, but we can have co-leads, we can have a lead, we can have triumvirates. As long as you don't triumvirate more than 2 people at a time. Okay, the chair recognizes Jane Leeds. Jane, was that you?
Hello?
Oh, we hear
Hello?
you. Go ahead, Jane. We hear you.
Okay, good. Okay. Getting muted and unmuted is a issue for me. I have a question about the use of technology, using videos to get the word out. Would that be permitted? Would that be a collaboration if we're just creating awareness of the issues, not so much advocating a certain issue? And putting that out in the libraries for a group to use to look at and learn about CTAC?
And Jane had asked me this question previously, and I think the question centers about, is there a budget for either the production of these videos or the kinds of things that we're going to get into? And we're not talking about expensive, but we're talking primarily, I would say, a video film of either a meeting or a person making a presentation or something like that. Is that something we could pursue?
Well, I don't think it has to be something for the Oscars to look at. I think it could be something very simple. Not long in length, it could be just a series of questions or a series of ideas, or, it doesn't have to be a big production. Just something that's out there to awaken people's interest.
Well, Jane, let me answer that for you. I see that as, if we can produce that ourselves, then we can go ahead and do it and make it available to people, as long as we know what the content is. We're advertising CTAC as a component of the transportation solution in the region and some of the issues at hand, and I don't see that as an issue. Now, if we could do it without asking any resources from the FAMPO staff, even more better. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay.
This is Glenn. I'd like to possibly add to that, and it really ties into our next topic. But in regards to technology, with the question that was just posed, is it feasible or reasonable to also add that to, let's say, social media such as Facebook in order to do that type of broadcast or something similar?
No, I agree. So, I mean, we will discuss the Facebook issue and the next agenda item, but there's lots of media out there that these kinds of things can be done. The only thing I would ask is that if you intend to post something, it's consistent with what we're doing, so that we can maintain consistency of message and of purpose. Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other people who would like to volunteer for any of these focus groups at this point in time? If you would like to do that, please reach out to the FAMPO staff, Becky. Reach out to me, and I see this is going to evolve over time, and as soon as we can convince everybody we're not going to take up all of your time, maybe we'll get some more. Chair recognizes Rupert Farley.
When do you anticipate the first meeting?
I'm sorry.
Yeah. When do you anticipate the first meeting?
Now, you raise a good point. these are not necessarily meetings. These are going to be collaborations, and it's going to be a little bit cumbersome, but as our 3 members did the collaboration for the mission statement, the initial coordination among members is going to be by email. And it'll have to be send an email to somebody else, they forward it to somebody else. It is cumbersome, I grant that. But as we're organizing and start exchanging information and ideas, then we'll take that, and when we have a consensus or something that needs to be discussed among a larger group of people, we'll make that part of the regular CTAC agenda meeting. We are not going to have meetings in violation of the open meeting laws on any of these 3 focus groups. I don't want you, I, or FAMPO to get themselves in a trick. So we're going to try to be very careful and make sure that we do this. Is this the most efficient way to do this? No. But if life was tough, you know, we wouldn't have to do this at all. Okay, any other comments about that agenda item?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Please.
Jane, do you?
Oh, hold on just a second, Jane.
Was I listed down as for Stafford? I'm a representative for Spotsylvania.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
For Spotsylvania?
Yeah.
Just wanted to point that out. Make sure you didn't write anything down.
Okay, we'll make sure we got that corrected. Okay, Jane, Chair recognizes Jane.
Yes, thank you. I just want to allay people's fear about the use of time. The idea that I sent to Hank today, just to Hank, nobody else, about mass transit. It took me 15 minutes from start to finish to look it up, copy it, send it to him. So it wasn't a lot of time, but it was a lot of information, good information, I think. And so it doesn't take massive amounts of time to find things, especially with the computer, and especially things that you know about and things that you're interested in. Just to give you that, a little comfort pill, if you will, it doesn't take enormous amounts of time.
I'd like to second that. The hardest mission that's been done so far were our 3 members who I asked them, put your hand into a dark room and tell me what you feel, but you can't tell more than one other member of the 3 groups. They did a pretty good job. So that's probably going to be the most difficult thing anybody has to do, because you created from whole cloth something that is acceptable. I think, as Jane points out, there's a lot of information out there. You have opinions, you have priorities, you have interests, and communicating those among others, as long as we don't do 3 at a whack, or if we can make time to our agendas during regularly scheduled meetings, will serve us in good stead. Any other comments about this agenda item? Becky.
A correction for the captioner, Jacob Clay, who's joining the Congestion Mitigation, is a representative from Spotsylvania County.
Any other comments? Okay, the next old business item is a discussion about Facebook, and at the last meeting, Mr. Farley made a motion that we send a letter to the policy committee and cease use of Facebook. Have I captured that correct?
That's the gist of it.
And the discussion was tabled until this meeting so that we could get more information about the FAMPO experience with Facebook. Have they censored or altered content in any way? Do they see a benefit or a detriment to Facebook? And then we could make an informed decision on whether we should send a letter to the policy committee. So do we have any information from the FAMPO perspective that we can share with the members?
I know that in looking, this is Becky Golden, and Lana Bizot helped also in updating our quarterly work plan. There were extensive hits on Facebook from over the last quarter. I don't know, Lana, if you remember that fact, but it's quite a popular medium, and we've not had any recorded violations or hacking of our messaging that staff is aware of.
So from the FAMPO, I'm sorry, say again?
I request to recognize Morgan Birch, Stafford County.
Okay, Chair recognizes Morgan Birch.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. May I request that the committee provide some elaboration on the reasoning behind ceasing the use of Facebook?
I would ask Mr. Farley to talk about that since he made the original motion.
Yeah, this is Rupert. Thank you very much. There's been other stuff in the news lately that kind of corresponds to this. It made me think of the issue that I raised when, was it Neil Young, the musician, yanked his business away from Spotify because of Spotify's policies of racial bigotry or supporting it. So it's not that Spotify did anything to him. It's not that Facebook has done anything to us. He said, I don't like the idea of us fraternizing and supporting an institution that's blatantly got algorithms that encourage hate and sensationalism instead of the truth.
Okay. Any other comments? Chair recognizes Dave Swan.
Yeah, I'm not in favor of this motion at all, I'll state right now. I think we're chasing something that's possibly popular, public, at a certain time. Every organization that you encounter online uses algorithms for sifting through information so that they don't get a lawsuit. So, it gets into the legal realm very quickly. And I'd like to know if the policy committee has used Facebook to transmit information out about their activities, or the Commonwealth Transportation Committee, or VDOT for that matter. Are they using Facebook? I don't know because I don't use Facebook at all. But I just think we're chasing this down a squirrel hole because I don't think there's anything out there. We're a very low threat target to anybody out there, and people look at us for information, and I hope they would assume that it's true. And if it isn't, we clear it up if we put out the wrong information. So that's our due diligence as public servants. And so I just think it's ridiculous even to discuss it, because it's like, you're doing what? The public would look at us and go, he's using Facebook all the time. We don't worry about those things.
I would like to ask you a question. Sure. I need a full answer. But I'm curious to know, what do you mean is something we're chasing that happens to be popular right now? What do you mean by that? Because what he's saying is absolutely true. It's not just popular right now. There's a lot of people out there promoting hate speech. Now, I agree with you that there's not a whole lot that we as a group can do about it. And that we disagree with is also complicit. If we don't want them to have all this hate speech, then we should stay on the platform and let them know we disagree. And as far as this thing is popular right now, it's not popular.
Well, I'm just echoing what Rupert said. It's come up, in the public. I don't know how popular it is because members of my family are on Facebook for years, as far as I know. And I just ask them not to include me in any of the Facebook postings that they do. I think it's a waste of time. But I'd like you to define hate speech for me. Hate speech is
You're talking about the different groups of people in a negative way, trans people, homosexual people, different groups in a hateful way, or in different nationalities in a hateful way.
Well, if I can jump in just for a second, Chair recognizes himself. The issue, I believe, is something like Facebook or Twitter or anything else like that is here to stay for the time being. Who knows how long? Whether they're regulated by Congress or not remains to be seen. And there are a multitude of voices there. What I think we should be concerned about is, does the platform get our word out to people who might be interested in what we are doing? And more importantly, do they modify anything that we put out in a way that we don't want modified? In other words, distorting our message. It would appear to me that if they are a free platform that allows us to get the word out without distorting or prejudicing our being prejudicial to our message, then it is an asset we should probably avail ourselves of. If they distort our message or put us in a light that is not correct, then I would say we have the option of either correcting them, or if they refuse to correct it, then saying, thank you, we're gone. Now, that's just an opinion. Are there any other opinions or comments?
Mr. Chair, request to
Sure,
recognize Morgan Birch, Stafford County.
This is Neil Holland.
Hold on just a second. Hold on just a second, Morgan.
So, this is Ian Ollett from FAMPO. I'm the FAMPO administrator. To answer just a couple of the quick questions. First of all, I don't believe we use Spotify at all currently. With the other social media, we do use Twitter, we use Facebook, we do use LinkedIn, and there may be some others, but those are the primary ones that we use. To my knowledge, they have not distorted any of our current messaging. They are an asset to us currently because they help us get the message out. And often with public participation, we channel multiple options. So we send out bulk email, we use all of these different social media methods, we post notices on the door, we try to do tables when COVID isn't too bad, and we try to get the message out. Here's our long-range plan, please send us comments, criticism, input, or whatever the case is. Long-term, Rupert's question is a valid one. And it's a question for me, and this is my own perspective, feel free to disagree, but for me, the question is this. You have to weigh up the benefits versus the cost. And Rupert's question is not an unimportant one, because the question is, at what point do the costs outweigh the benefits to a point where we should say, no, we're not going to use this anymore? And there may come a time when we have to say that the costs here are to our credibility and to whatever else we stand for, because this platform has become so bad that it's affecting our credibility. And there will come a time when on a particular social media platform, we have to decide we're done with this one. So as the administrator, my advice would be that we have to weigh up those two things. The benefits to the public and to us as an institution on the one hand, and the costs and the perceived damage we do to our institution on the other hand as these social media get worse. So if it was Spotify that we were talking about, I'd start to feel uncomfortable. There's some things going on there that are making me uncomfortable. Right now, Facebook has not damaged our message, but they do have algorithms that serve their purpose. And we have to, I think, keep an eye on us so that come a time, maybe soon, maybe a long time from now, when it gets to the point where the cost is high, we will have to make that decision and say, as an institution, it's got to that point now. The cost to us, the damage to our reputation, and the fact that we're supporting this institution is too much, and the benefit is not enough to outweigh that. So that's the point. I don't think his point is invalid. The question is, have we reached that moment in time? And it's a bit of a judgment call. Have we reached it or have we not?
Okay, Chair recognizes Morgan Birch.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just want to draw attention and kind of ground us back to what our purpose here is as an advisory committee for transportation. We don't drive policy, especially whenever it comes to how this body, FAMPO as a whole, communicates to the public and utilizes publicly accessible platforms. I believe somebody had mentioned earlier that Facebook is a major platform that is a major avenue to access to information, which is our key for our point of existing is to make sure that we're providing the appropriate information to the citizenry. And I implore this committee not to get into the business of attempting to dictate which communication mediums the FAMPO utilizes. in order to communicate those messages out. That's not really what we're here for. Thank you.
Are there any other comments, either remotely or present?
Neil Holler in Spotsylvania County.
Say again, please.
Neil Holler, Spotsylvania County.
Okay.
Yeah, look, everything that Morgan said, but I'll remind the committee that we were looking at our agenda last time, and there was a
So you're breaking up a little bit.
I don't know, how's that then? Any better?
That's a little better.
A little better.
I'll just remind the committee, last time there was an agenda item that went into FAMPO statistics for Facebook and what the goodness was of it. So given that, I would just refer you all to that to, kind of get off of this topic, because everything so far is great, and all of the other stuff that Morgan said about what the purpose is of what we're doing and whether FAMPO decides to use Facebook or not is pretty much not a topic for the CTAC or probably any other committee at this point. So that's all I got.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay, so Rupert, you made the motion. Do you want to restate the motion or withdraw the motion?
I made the motion last meeting, you mean?
Correct. And we tabled it until today.
Well, I'd like to mention that I agree wholeheartedly with Ian with his assessment of the situation. The only difference is he doesn't think we're at that time. I think we're at that time now. So yeah, I'll make the motion that we make a recommendation that policy committee consider the implications of doing business with Facebook.
Okay, so can you restate that one more time?
That CTAC would recommend that policy look into ceasing business with Facebook due to their, I don't want to say anti-American behavior. It's not exactly what is the right word, but that'll do for now.
Okay, the motion has been made. Is there a second?
I heard somebody say second. Who said second online?
No, I didn't say second. I mean, I just wanted to know if we could take it to a vote.
It only goes to a vote if there's a second.
Yeah.
All right, I'll second it.
Wait, the motion has been made and the chair is calling for a second to the motion. Is there a second to the motion?
Rodney Thomas will second it.
Say again?
Rodney
Thomas will second it.
Okay, motion
Mr.
has
Chair?
been made and seconded. Is
Mr.
there
Chair?
any, say again?
Go ahead, sir.
Morgan.
Okay, all right, motion's been made and seconded, and Rupert, one more time, if you would restate that, or whatever we're gonna vote on.
The motion is for CTAG to recommend to policy that they look into, they're doing business with Facebook because of our concerns of their hate-oriented algorithms.
Okay, the motion is that we recommend to the policy committee they look into doing business with Facebook because of their hate-oriented algorithms. Is that okay? So motion's made and seconded. Any other discussion on the motion?
Mr. Chair, request be recognized.
1 minute, please.
I just want to know, are you saying once we look into this situation with Facebook, are you saying that the committee should stop using it altogether, or what are you saying?
The policy committee would stop using it, and therefore we would also stop using it.
Okay.
Oh, wait, Chair recognizes Morgan Birch.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I request that when casting the vote that you count votes by name instead of asking for A or nays as a whole.
Okay, roll call. All right. Chair recognizes Dave McLaughlin.
I think, tell me if this is the right clarification. The motion did not direct PC was going to do anything except recommend they look into the policy of period doc.
Yeah.
Where they go from that? Is
Yeah.
that right? The policy, so our motion is pretty simple. We're going to make a recommendation. We would like to make a recommendation to the policy committee that they look into the use of Facebook because of objectionable or hate algorithms.
Okay, everybody understand the motion? Any other discussion?
So the motion is not to stop using Facebook, but to investigate using Facebook.
Right.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Dave?
I just had a question, and I don't think it's been answered. Does the policy committee use Facebook or any purpose?
They do. They gave a presentation to the policy committee of their engagement with Facebook, which is pretty impressive in terms of contacts and so on.
That would have been nice to have known that up front. But, okay.
I apologize. I thought that we would do that. That's my fault.
Yeah.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, we'll call a roll call vote, and the chair will not vote except in case of a tie.
Okay.
So you take your attendance register and you only count the official members.
Okay. Morgan Birch,
Nay.
Sarah Durant not here. Glenn Goldsmith,
4.
James Powell,
Yes.
David Swan,
Nay.
Jacob Clay,
Nay.
Mr. Cunningham, Neil Holleran,
Nay.
Matthew Rowe,
Nay.
Josh Bruck, John Castellarin,
I'm going to abstain.
David McLaughlin,
No.
Rupert Farley,
Yes.
Jane Leeds,
Nay.
Dustin Savage,
Abstain.
Rodney Thomas,
Nay.
have I missed any committee members that are present? One. 8 nays. Three yeas. 2 abstain.
Okay, the motion fails. Next item on the agenda is a discussion about congestion pricing. Is the report tonight intended towards that, or?
This was further discussion of Mr. Farley.
No, yes, of his motion that we sent a letter about recommending congestion pricing.
Yes, let me read the motion made by Mr. Farley from the minutes. This issue, congestion pricing as a means of preventing events, such as the January 3rd snowstorm blocking traffic and shutting down I-95 for approximately 24 hours. Currently, the Code of Virginia does not allow congestion pricing. Had there been such a system, it's possible motorists would have diverted off of I-95 to avoid a higher toll ahead of the snow event. So the discussion, Mr. Farley, you can correct me if I'm wrong, was the idea to initiate correspondence to change the Code of Virginia to open up congestion pricing, or do you want to maybe add to that summary?
As I recall, the problem is with congestion pricing is that federal regulations prevent it.
Ah.
And policy has not seen fit to go to the federal government and ask permission. And I was thinking with this little additional bit of evidence, or a little additional incentive to add to the quiver, I guess you might say, of benefits to having congestion pricing, that might be enough of an inducement for policy to consider legislative committee to ask for permission to use congestion pricing. So basically, I just was in favor of CTAC recommending that policy consider legislative committee to ask permission to use congestion pricing.
Rupert, you're sliding a lot of considers in there. So, all right, so would you restate your motion? Is it something you want us to do or the policy committee to do, and if so, to whom?
Well, there's nothing we can do except make suggestions.
Well, actually, we can. We can make suggestions to anybody, just like we sent a letter to the Spotsylvania supervisor. So that we understand what you'd like us to consider. Would you restate what you'd like in your motion?
Okay, well, the motion would be a resolution from CTAC to the policy committee recommending a legislative committee to the federal government to ask the right to use congestion pricing on already established highways.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
First chair recognizes Matt. Go ahead.
We have one comment online from Tamara. Well, actually, hold on. Never mind.
Chair recognizes Ian while he's bringing that up. Go ahead.
Just in terms of information.
Point of order, was that a motion? Was that a motion?
That's true.
We need a second before we discuss it.
Yeah, no, I'm just trying to clarify the exact wording of that.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Sorry.
She has it in the minutes, I believe.
Well, no, it's been modified a little bit.
Oh, has it?
I want to make sure I get Ian's intent. We tabled it from the last meeting to allow us to gather information, and if it evolves a little bit, that's okay. I just want to make sure that we're clear of your intent, what you'd like us to do. So if I understand your motion, it is that we as the CTAC body send a letter to the policy committee that they reach out to the state and to adopt congestion pricing in the state of Virginia. Is that a decent summary?
Saying adopt congestion pricing makes it sound like almost a mandate. I think the freedom to use congestion pricing.
Okay, embrace it as a legal means or, okay.
Basically, we have no right to do it now. And that was denied us by thanks to the highway builders lobby back in the 40s.
But we'd like to stick to the legal constraints, yeah.
I don't do that. I don't do what the highway lobbyists did back in the 40s.
All right, so the motion has been made. Is there a second? All right, first, now, before the motion is on the floor, that we can get into the discussion if it's seconded.
That's why we wasted our time. He says he wants to adopt, so it's possible to use this congestion pricing. What are we saying? That's what I don't understand. Are we saying that we want to raise prices because of congestion, lower prices because of congestion?
No, hold that. That's part of the discussion. So, I mean, congestion pricing being a technique that could be adopted by state of Virginia. All right, so is there a second to the motion?
I'll second the motion.
All right, so the motion has been seconded.
By Jacob Clay.
By Jacob Clay, Spotsylvania. Okay, discussion. Chair recognizes Dave McLaughlin.
So, congestion pricing, explain to me what the difference between the existing congestion pricing that we're using right now on I-95 with the hot lane. What are we talking about? That is congestion pricing. More congestion, the more you pay. So we have that. We're doing it right now. I don't understand the motion.
We don't have it on the regular lanes.
Explain them.
And we don't have the right to use it on the regular lanes.
Well, in some places there are toll roads. That's the ultimate. You either pay or you don't use. That's the ultimate congestion pricing. And then you have variable tolling.
I'm not talking about the hot lanes. I'm talking about the regular lanes.
So But you're saying that we can't do it, and yet in fact we are doing it. You're saying we can't.
We cannot do it on existing roads, but we can do it if we start a project with the intent of putting tolls on.
So the intent of your motion is that we would, we would endorse that it be allowed on existing lanes?
Yes.
Non-hot or HOV lanes. Okay, so.
And our new members didn't hear the explanation of what congestion this is Becky Golden. At the last meeting, Mr. Ollis explained to members there what congestion pricing is, and our members, 2 new members, missed that explanation. So in brief, congestion pricing that Mr. Farley is talking about is the idea that on any road, for example, the freeway of I-95, and we actually, in the upcoming item, the congestion management process document, in the appendix, Ms. Lizotte has put in strategies for congestion mitigation. And the idea is that you could, let's use the incident on I-95. We know from the Weather Channel that a massive storm is coming. And you can, the technology exists today that you could put up a portable system that if everybody has an Easy Pass on their car already, and there is a Texas Transportation Institute example, a pamphlet in that, in our appendix that takes you to it. You can actually put up a portable system on I-95, and let's say that between Ashland and Thornburg, that's where that big storm is going to come. Even though it's not on the hot lanes and doesn't have the detector as you drive under it on the hot lanes, you can put up a portable system that will tell you, a sign that says, okay, and Mr. Farley's example was, it's going to be $100 a mile to go on 95 between Ashland and Thornburg for the next 24 hours. And a trucker or a person like myself, you know, going from Florida to New York will say, all right, I want to pay that amount of money, or I'm going to divert off onto Route 1 or Route 301 to go to Delaware. So the technology exists that you can do it on any road and pretty much on an ad hoc or any time, but the legislation, the lobbyists have blocked that from being used at the federal level, and it would take a change in the law to use it on other roads except for the hot lanes or express lanes for which it is now exists.
Well, can I recognize that as one of the...
Go ahead.
What was congestion pricing on the highway? What would it benefit other than taking this traffic and send it on to the local roads? And that would be a benefit.
Yes, it would benefit the road you're taking the traffic off of, and that's the whole point.
But then the local people, this traffic that's going from Richmond to Baltimore is now going through local roads. It's going on Route 1, on Route 3. Now the people that are riding locally have to deal with what you just took off highway because it's costing $100 a mile.
So,
point of order.
All right, hold on. The chair recognizes the vice chair, Matt Rowe.
Did we get a second on?
There was a second,
There was
yes.
a second, okay, sorry, I missed that.
Point of order is withdrawn. Matt Lahan.
There was a comment online from someone asking how would this affect, their concern was how would this affect our fixed income community?
Well, you raise a very good point. And I'm obviously not going to speak authoritatively, but any congestion pricing is an economic burden on people who don't have an option to travel in a non-congested period of time.
Mr. Chair,
okay, Chair Farley.
Yeah, I really object to that remark.
I'm sorry?
I really object to that remark you made because that's totally misleading. The money that you make off congestion pricing can go to support a lot of transportation projects, a lot of transit projects for the poor people that can't even afford to buy a car to go on 95 when it's free. So yeah, the money you make off of congestion pricing could go a long ways into taking care of transportation projects that are now getting zero. And not only that, it would encourage people to start living closer to their work so they wouldn't be paying tolls. And they would be better for saving energy, be better for the environment.
What I said was for people who don't have any other option. Now, if you have to be on the road for whatever reason, it is an economic burden. If you could have other options, whether they were mass transferred at a different time, it's a different issue.
You would have that option if you had the money. And the money comes from the congestion pricing tolls.
No, not necessarily. And we're not going to belabor this point. We can argue the semantics of that. Somebody wanted to be recognized remotely.
Mr. Chair, Morgan Birch, Stafford County, request to be recognized.
Go ahead.
I do have two things. One point is that I want to make sure that we don't draw parallels between the hot lane congestion pricing that is completely controlled by a private entity Transurban Group on that roadway as per their agreement with this Commonwealth. And the second that I'd like to ask that we amend the motion to simply be two letters. One letter be sent to Congressman Rob Whitman and one to Delegate Tara Durant, asking them to form legislative committees to review the issue of congestive pricing so they can gather quantifiable data to make a sound decision and inform the public appropriately. Thank you.
You all are going to put me through Robert's rules tonight. I can see this right now.
Yeah.
Okay. There has been a friendly amendment to the motion. Does that friendly amendment have a second?
I'll second.
Going to make life difficult. Okay.
All right, the second was Mr. Savage.
Okay, the friendly amendment has been seconded. Which one did we discuss first? The friendly amendment?
Yes.
And I think because that was made, you have to take a vote on it immediately.
Okay, so friendly amendment has been made that we modify the amendment by sending a letter to Representative Whitman and
Tara Durant.
Okay, Tara Durant to form a committee to investigate the issue. All right, motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We have 3 ayes. All opposed?
Nay.
Apparently the friendly amendment, friendly amendment is voted down. Go back to the original amendment, which has been made and seconded about the sending a letter through the policy committee asking them to consider adopting congestion pricing. Is there any other discussion on this amendment? Chair recognizes Dave Swan.
Dave Swan, just one point. I was out there on January 3rd, driving around on the secondary roads, and I think that's what Rupert is talking about. I mean, I've listened to Rupert's pitch on congestion pricing, and I think I understand it pretty well. But I'm telling you, if it didn't matter if you're on I-95 or if you're on Route 1, which is the other north-south artery, you weren't going anywhere. There was congestion on Route 1, there was congestion on I-95, and there was congestion in my neighborhood, all those back roads that everybody who owned a four-wheel drive vehicle was trying to use. And I just couldn't believe the numbers of people that were out there. And I saw emergency vehicles not able to get anywhere out there. So I have no idea. I was going to call Stafford County Sheriff's Office and volunteer to transport patients in my truck. It's a big four-wheel drive truck. And I wasn't having any problem getting around. It's just I couldn't get past cars that were in the road, and they weren't stuck. There were trees down. It was a mess. And so all I can say is if we're looking at that incident that day as a model for submitting a recommendation to the policy committee or further to the Commonwealth Transportation Board, it's probably not a very good example because you're just delaying congestion to different areas. And by the way, not only were emergency vehicles not able to respond to 95, they weren't able to get anywhere else in the county because of the congestion. So it was a bad situation, and hopefully we'll never have that again. But there's no change. I mean, VDOT hasn't even cleaned up the debris from the 3rd of January, And I don't think they're going to, till spring, whenever that is.
Any other comments? Chair will make some comments after the vote, please.
I'd just like to add to what he's saying. I don't understand why you would say that this would be a benefit. And on top of that, Northern Virginia has 2 north-south arteries, 95, Route 1. If you're not able to pay that fee to 595, you're going to Route 1. So you're not going to get anywhere on Route 1.
Okay, any other comments, discussion? Go ahead, please.
Jacob Clay.
Jacob Clay from Spotsylvania. I also agree with, what's your name, sir?
James.
Yeah, there's not many roads, that goes north and south, so if we make this, if we implement this, people are not gonna wanna pay it. I don't wanna go on the easy pass. I've never had it, because of the sole fact that I don't wanna pay it. And so you're gonna bog down the rest of us who have to commute to Northern Virginia and Southern Virginia by implementing, congestion, pricing. So it would be a disaster to do this.
Okay, any other comments in present, people remotely or in present?
Call the question.
All right, let's call the question.
I think one more remark in response to this last gentleman, that in the long term, congestion pricing in place is going to encourage people to live closer to work where they can walk to work. So you don't have to worry about alternate routes and how much it costs. So, the benefits of congestion pricing are obviously outweigh what we're doing right now, which is paving our way out of congestion, which has not worked for the last 60 years we've been doing it. Whereas congestion pricing has worked every place it's been put in place.
Okay, let's vote on the question. All those in favor of the motion to send a letter to the policy committee, or for them to send a letter to policy committee advocating congestion pricing to the state for adoption, signify by saying aye. Aye. 2 ayes, all opposed? Nay.
Nay.
Okay, motion is defeated. Now, my only comment is, I don't think congestion pricing for this most recent snowstorm would have made one difference in any way. However, it is a tool that our congestion mitigation committee can consider as we evolve and start looking at the larger issue of getting people off the roads. So while I think it had no applicability for the snowstorm, we could have destroyed ways and we would have still been screwed. I don't want people to arbitrarily dismiss it as a potential tool when we think about the larger issue of congestion mitigation.
It pays for the alternative.
It pays for the alternatives. Now, there's all sorts of implications on that. We'll get into that down the road, but I just don't want everybody to summarily dismiss that out of hand. It should be something you can consider. And after considering it, if you want to dismiss it, great. But just keep an open mind on the issue. Okay, having gone through all of the old business, review of the policy committee.
Oh, dear God.
I guess that's you. Chair recognizes Ian reluctantly.
Yeah, except he's even more reluctantly. So Matt's got the agenda there. This was a jam-packed policy committee meeting. I'm not going to rehash everything in there. We had an update on the variable speed limit. So that's the other tool to manage the traffic and manage it during storms. Instead of taxing people on the road, you change the speed limit so that they have to drive slower because a storm is coming. And Marty Parker gave a presentation because it's starting on the I-95 in the next, I think, month. Then the CMAQ project selection process, the policy committee approved our new CMAQ and SCBG project selection process. Those two acronyms stand for two sets of funding which we receive and which are one of the reasons that FAMPO exists. We allocate funding to projects in your jurisdiction. And we use CMAQ funding, which is called Congestion Mitigation and Air Quality funding, and STBG, which is Surface Transportation Block Grant funding, and we allocate that funding to projects, and so we have to have a way of choosing which projects get the money. And so we've tried to develop objective criteria. The policy committee approved those to do that. We then issued a call for projects, and we've asked each jurisdiction to send us one new project each, and then we're going to fund this year's money to existing projects that already have some funding, but there's not enough funding to build them, plus the 3 new projects. We then looked at regional studies. We have 2 regional studies right now, very exciting projects. The first one, or the one is looking at the Vpr Trail. So the Vpr Trail has been built in stages. There are pieces in Spotsylvania, there are pieces in the city, but it doesn't all connect up. And so we've hired the planning and engineering firm, Michael Baker, to deal with challenges to connecting up the Vpr Trail, and that is to cross the I-95 highway, to cross Route 1 in a better, safer fashion, and to cross 3 in a better, safer fashion. And they are now going to do an engineering study for us to look at the possibility of digging a tunnel under the I-95 to connect up the Vpr Trail, or alternatively, building a bridge over it, or going some way to crossing the I-95. Equally crossing Route 1 and Route 3. That's the one study. Policy committee approved the task order, and the funding to pay for it is starting next week. The second project is the phase 2 of the East-West mobility study, and the phase 2 is all of the engineering, all of the right-of-way design, and the investigation into 13 roadway corridors in the region that move in an east-west direction. So we've selected 13 roadways, and the phase 1 of the project, which we're bringing to conclusion soon, looked at transit particularly, what transit improvements could we bring about, and access to the train stations and key transit modes. So the policy committee approved that as well, and the funding for that, and the amendment to the UPWP, our work program document, which says what we are going to be doing as a institution. All of those amendments were approved. The long-range transportation plan we tabled, which you'll probably hear about in a minute tonight. And you've heard about, I think at your last meeting, we've completed the long-range transportation plan, and they approved a resolution to put the LRTP out for public comment, and we're all expecting you to give us your comments. I know Rupert has already sent some, and others have sent some. Please send us your comments. The document is online. You can download it one chapter at a time. You don't have to try and download the whole thing. You can download just the portions that you're interested in. Give us your comments. The SIP update, the SIP is the Transportation Improvement Program. It's effectively a document where we have to list all of the projects that are getting funding in our region, and we needed to add those 2 studies plus 5 projects that Fred Transit is implementing. We have to add them to our TIP, and so we have a public comment to add those projects to our Transportation Improvement Program. A new vice chair was elected to the policy committee from Stafford, and that is Ms. Meg Bomke. The FAMPO bylaws, they discussed an amendment to the bylaws to change the quorum rules for the policy committee, and the decision was taken to refer that to the to the Attorney General of Virginia. So I had to send a letter to the Attorney General. No further decision was taken on the bylaws, and this corresponds. I happily take questions, but I don't want to belabor your meeting. That's essentially what happened in the policy committee meeting.
And again, anybody's invited to attend those. This one is this next Monday at 7:30. A little out of sequence if you want to sit in here. Right here. Because of the holidays.
February 28th.
February the 28th.
28th, I'm sorry, 2 weeks from today, February 28th, but at 7:30. That's a different time because of the holiday, second holiday coming in. Okay, and you're all invited to attend. You just can't say anything. Yes, sir.
2 comments, if I may.
Please.
One, the quorum thing is pretty significant, and has been heated back 2 years ago. Things have kind of simmered down at what was happening in the policy committee. So if those of you who are around from that, you might want to look at that online, read that little section of the discussion about what we're talking about, the issues there for the quorum, and the change of the bylaws. The second one, and I think it was really impressive, you didn't bring it up, the administrator's report that's in there, that's online, you read that Ian does is very good, it's very useful, it's interesting reading, and I think especially new people on the board would get something out of it, so that was great.
Which administrator?
The meetings of the actual, they post a video for the meeting, the policy committee meeting on January 24th. So I looked at it today, so.
For those who haven't had a chance to read the Long Range Transportation Plan, it's a good document. I did not read it so closely that I would find the deliberately inserted mistakes.
2 of them.
I know, I didn't do it that quick, but it's a good document. I commend it to you if you have a chance. Okay, any public comments? Okay, there being no public comments, we'll go to member discussion and action, the congestion mitigation process update.
Yes, sir. This is Becky Golden. Again, we'd like to introduce the group to Lana Bizot, our intern that was instrumental in completing the congestion management process. This is an appendix in the Long Range Transportation Plan that is on the FAMPO website under, I believe, programs. And if you go to Long Range Transportation Plan page, it's got its own page. Under that is an appendix with this congestion management process. And in that are strategies and great maps about the level of congestion on our roads in the 2045 time frame, and strategies that have been done to improve those. And in the back are appendices with additional strategies we've referred to earlier that particularly the focus group on congestion mitigation will really enjoy
really good document.
Some of the Texas Transportation Institute ideas that are at the end of that document. So this is more for information, Mr. Ollis, and
Yes, and we are asking the policy committee to publish this document on the website also for public comment. But if you treat it as part of the LRTP, when you give your public comments on the LRTP, you can just insert your comments on the congestion management process. Also, Rupert, you'll be glad to hear that in that document, have to list strategies use congestion.
It is there.
And congestion pricing. Some of those have to going congestion pricing, looking at transit, a better transit system, and all that kind of thing. So that document, we can amend it, of course, but this is the updated one, and we have to list our strategies to deal with congestion in there by federal requirements. We have to have this.
It's a good source document for the folks who are going to join the focus group, not committee, focus group on congestion mitigation. Okay. The comments you can see, please get your comments in. Let's see, what else do we need on that?
I think that's about it. Just a reminder that the deadline for public comment for the LRTP and including the congestion management process is February 28th.
Okay. Any other public comment? Okay, there being none, any correspondence that we've received?
No, sir. We've got 3 resolutions to quickly summarize and see if you want to enforce these resolutions or information. They're attached to your agenda. Resolution 22-25 is amending our transportation improvement program. That's a document for our new members that incorporates all the funding projects that the localities bring to the region.
Correct?
Yes.
It directs the public comment for that document. It is not our state. It's directly public comment about those changes to the document.
Yes, all 3 resolutions are involving a public comment period to amend the transportation improvement program.
correction 2226, there is already an open public policy, public statement, or public comment period going on right now. So actually 2226 is actually to approve the amendments to the TIP, not a public comment period.
Yes, I'm sorry, if I can just, this is Ian, FAMPO Administrator, if I can just assist. Sorry that this is confusing to some folks. The reason it's confusing is we're currently in a public comment period to amend the TIP because we've got a whole bunch of requests to amend it. And the resolution that he's talking about is to close the public comment period and to say we hereby approve those amendments. The other resolution is to start a whole new public comment period for the TIP because guess what? VDOT and Fred Transit came late with a whole bunch of additional amendments that we have to do. So you're right, it's a little confusing. The resolution closes the current public comment period and adopts the amendment. The second one starts a whole new public comment period for the additional ones that came late, which is not our fault. It's our state partners that do this to us. So there are two public comment periods, close the one, start the other one. So that's what the two resolutions do.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. And how about the 2024, the Unified Work Program Amendment 1?
That's also to close the public comment period and to approve the amendment.
Great.
God bless bureaucracy.
Oh, man, it drives us nuts.
Okay. Any
We
other
don't need
staff
a
reports?
motion on any of them. It's just
Information. Yes.
No action.
Any other staff reports? Member reports?
So those that we just went through were item I.
I'm sorry?
That was item I, those resolutions.
And then we also covered II just now, Unified Work Program.
CI, and then II was the UPWP.
Yes.
We're done.
Yeah, we skipped that and she went back to it.
And then another public comment request, if you have additional public comments, which you just did, I believe.
Right. Okay, are there any other staff reports?
Oh, wait, am I reading this correct? So, one of these is an action item. Is it all of item I is an action item, or just the last resolution in item I?
All three of those are action items.
One action item.
All three of those are action items for the policy.
Yeah, not for us.
So you can endorse it if you wish, but you're not required to.
Oh, okay, well, okay, then.
It shouldn't say action, it was.
Okay, then our agenda is incorrect when it indicates an action item for us.
Yes, it'd be more
Right.
information. Yes, there really wasn't an action item at all in item 8.
Okay,
No, it's a correct point of order. It was for our information, their action.
Mr. Chair,
The agenda generated me as the action item, and I focused on.
Why did you do that, Becky?
It's
Totally my fault.
Okay,
The point is, it is not an action item.
correct.
That's a good idea. That's great.
No, you are correct.
Mr. Chair, request for recognized.
Say again? What was it?
Morgan.
Okay, go ahead, Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I just have a question to the FAMPO staff, just out of curiosity. So for the comment area on Resolution 22-25, more respective to UPC 120524, the park and ride lot at exit 133, is that the same park and ride lot or the same commuter lot that was identified in the LRTP 2045 back in 2018 for Old Forge?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, Matt Lahan says that is correct. That is the same lot.
Yep, that is correct. That came out of the US 17 STAR study that was completed when you were here in 2018, I believe.
Okay, wow. Okay, interesting. Thank you.
Any other questions concerning this?
Thank you, Matt.
Okay, there being no other staff reports, there is one? Okay, go ahead, Matt.
My last day at FAMPO will be February 15th, or February 14th, I guess. So,
You're not celebrating, are you?
no, I'm just letting you know staff reports.
This is
Okay.
Mr. Lahane, Matthew Lahane.
Matt is going to leave us.
Yes.
Okay. The member reports. Any other member have something to report to the group? All right, the only thing I will report, and it's not for discussion, is I'm going to ask Becky to pass out an initial draft of operating procedures for our focus groups. I created a draft, I'm sorry?
I did that when you were talking about the.
Oh, you did, okay. Never mind, you have those, okay. So I created an initial draft. I got some feedback from the first two volunteers to these focus groups. I'll encourage anybody else's feedback. We're not going to discuss it. This is going to be an evolving document, but it helps provide a little bit of structure and form to how I see these groups operating.
And I will send this to all CTAC members as a PDF tomorrow, because we know we handed, all the things we handed out tonight and showed on the screen, the mission statement and the operating procedures, we will send tomorrow to folks if they came late.
Any question about that? Okay, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn. So, motion made by Matt Rowe to adjourn, second by Dave Swan. All those in, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Any opposed? Anybody want a roll call vote? No, okay.